This is Meg 6 American literature based on blocks 1 and 9, paper solved assignment 21-22. The first question, comment on the theme of Wallace Stevens' poem The Emperor of Ice Cream. One of the important questions that is usually set for the examination, and students must be careful in answering the question to the point. It is very, very important to answer the question to the point. So, starting from the question and the answer. The Emperor of Ice Cream verse by Wallace Stevens is notable and famous due to the trouble that it presents to understudies. The sonnet is made out of two equilibrated 8-line parts. The scene should address a demise, wake. In 1945, Stevens brought up that this sonnet was remarkable. He said each verse should be extraordinary as though it were the briefly full language moves it, regardless of whether the vaguest inclination motivates it. The setting of the sonnet is a memorial service, a chance for one of the most loved juxtapositions among life and passing. The American writer says that is clearly not with regards to frozen yogurt, but rather about being recognized recognized from appearing to be frozen yogurt is an outright dissent. The coolness and joy of the frozen yogurt are the way into this verse on how life and demise, joy and distress coincide. The frozen heart picture addresses awful passing and the wake that have a place with with life. Chilly, wonderful, typical, and signal simultaneously. Ice cream is a similitude of life in passing. Frozen yogurt additionally addresses the change and stream in this verse, the two of which are imperative parts of presence. It addresses development and change, since it dissolves quickly. In its frozen structure, it at the same time addresses hardness and robustness. The idea is that, in spite of the fact that the truth is a firm perspective, the Emperor of Ice Cream will clearly adjust change and flow as its fundamental topic. We are seeing the improvement of a topical clash among life and passing in the sonnet, The Emperor of Ice Cream. The sonnet is separated into two strokes and might be depicted as the strokes of life and demise. This idea is upheld by its structure and substance and is supplemented by a sonnet. Theme of Wallace Stevens' poem, The Emperor of Ice Cream, which isn't just truly parted into verses, yet additionally the substance and which means of every refrain. The title passes on a sensation of comedic delicacy, perhaps related to the term ruler, that means power and control. Either demise of life or life ought not to be taken too. In the real sense, is exactly what the writer seems to recommend in his title. We suggest analyze the type of the verse and answer the inquiry why it was coordinated in such a way in the wake of inspecting the substance. The initial part of the sonnet takes on a brilliant, euphoric look with a situation of tiring vixens, folks with blossoms, and a stogie, stogie roller with a solid perspective. The expression desirous is significant yearning for sex. Stephen noted in 1945 that no ancestries were remembered for this sentence. They simply pass on craving forever. Yet, as opposed to the sonnets, they communicate or underscore the hopelessness of presence, and there is a bonus that gives them a modest gloss. The inert body that the subsequent section depicts is rather than the curds. The mention to stogies, a phallic picture, additionally has a sexual picture. Sex, that is, the power and the demise of life carry on in this verse. Simultaneously, you might envision that the sonnet occurred during a party or festivity with all the delight of the initial stanza. Maybe it is. Notwithstanding, as we cross the middle into the subsequent theme of Wallace Stevens' poem, The Emperor of Ice Cream, verse, the tone of the sonnet turns faintly. This time, the picture shows a cold, melancholy room with modest decorations that need basic components, glass handles. A woman is in the room and has a sheet covering not every last bit of her body hung over her body. From such word, we might find finish up to show how cold and stupid she is. If we investigate the refrain further, we find confirmation that the woman was ruined. This woman isn't treated similarly as a lady of honorability on her own deathbed, with her feet projecting from the material which covers the middle. We should likewise zero in on the second to conclusive line of every verse and furthermore on what the keep going line indistinguishable on the two sonnets and its importance is let be last of showing up might be perceived to cause things to appear as if they are and to look less. In the principal stanza of the young men and the ladies are alive and sound. They need to partake in their life, however much they can. They not the not many that are young ladies and young men in the following lines that represent both youth, anything that remains along behind by the perished woman, as in conversely the lady is dead in the subsequent refrain. So we see that likewise in the second refrain, the second to conclusive line, let the light fasten its bow, its beam. Theme of Walter Stevens' poem, The Emperor of Ice Cream. The center it shows up has moved from the old woman in the room depicted in the initial line to her loved ones. At long last, the last line between the two stanzas. The main emperor is the ruler of the frozen yogurt, is that of the frozen yogurt from the beginning, is short and delectable. However, over the long haul, the frozen yogurt disintegrates and loses its engaging attributes, which might be utilized as an analogy to address the pattern of life. Theme of Wallace Stevens' poem, The Emperor of Ice Cream. Two lines in Stevenson's poem have often caused readers to wonder in puzzlement at what they might mean. The first is the title itself, The Emperor of Ice Cream, a phrase which is repeated in the last lines of both the first and the second stanzas. Indeed, as part of the closing lines of each stanza, its importance is underscored and re-emphasized. In these lines, the Emperor of Ice Cream is in fact the only emperor. In order to understand this image, and its symbolic aspect as fully as possible, one need also understand its corollary. The line which precedes it in the first stanza, let be the finally of seeing. Finally, Dickinson in I Could Not See to See, the last line of a well known poem. I heard a fly buzz when I died. Point 465. Makes a pun out of a simple verb. Since the eyes cannot see, she cannot understand. Just as Dickinson uses see on two quite different levels, the literal and the figurative Stevenson does here with be. When Stevens writes let it be the finale of the poem, he is using the first be as a noun, being, and the second as a verb. His line might be translated as let being be the end of appearance, or to paraphrase Kurt Vonnegut Jr. in his introduction to Mother Night, 1961, be careful who you pretend to be, because who you pretend to be is who you are. Stevens is suggesting that there is, or at least ought to be, a close connection between one's actions and who one is. The way is in one's existence in the world should reflect one's inner essences. Or perhaps at another level, it already does, whether one wishes to acknowledge it or not. In one of his letters, Stevens commented on this line, suggesting that being should become the denominator conclusion of appearing to be. In other words, what one sees is what one gets, and how one acts becomes, in fact, who one is. Another way to put this would be to say that one should abandon one's research for idealized or romanticized possibilities in one's life and accept what is already there for what it is. Stevens went on to comment in his letter that ice cream is an absolute good if one is aware of how transitory ice cream is, how filled with fat and sugar, how unimportant, if not negative, it is to be one's nutrition and health. One will not be able to appreciate it for what it is. A dessert that is cold to sweet and delicious, and ultimately satisfying on its own terms. Stevens is suggesting far more than that. One should indulge oneself in richly satisfying desserts. However, he is using ice cream as a symbol of life itself, while ironically reminding readers that they too were, will end up poor and cold and dumb, like the woman in the poem who has died. He is more positively asserting that life can be fun, that one should enjoy one's life as fully as possible while one is alive, able. To do this, one must experience and enjoy those things which please the body as well as those which please the heart, mind, and spirit. In other words, in other poems, Stevens writes at length about that and advocates the pleasure of the mind engaged in art. Here he advocates the pleasures of the senses. One may choose to live most significantly in one's mind, heart, or spirit. Stephen knows, yet one can also enjoy one's physical life lustily, enjoying it like the pleasure filled process of eating concupiscent curds, concupiscent curds, or erotic ice creams. So, the essence of the poem may be complex, but at the same time very interesting. and that is to be understood by the students. Take it simply as it is, not as complex as it appears to be. There is no complexity here in this poem, but the meaning needs to be clarified more conspicuously, and that attempt has been made for the students, for them at least to understand what they are trying to study or to reach. That is more important than anything else.